This past year, the Genesis Prize Foundation selected actor, producer, and activist Michael Douglas as its awardee. It's a bit of a surprise announcement. Why would this committee, composed of great Jewish leaders and thinkers, award this giant Jewish honor to a man whose mother was Anglican and had not been reared as a Jew? Michael Douglas's paternal grandparents were Jewish immigrants from Belarus. His father was born Isser Danielovich, who became Kirk Douglas. As his father aged and found more meaning in religious life, the son also became a spiritual seeker. At some unique point in time, some moment that was filled with meaning, he sought out Judaism, Jewish community, and Jewish knowledge. Last year, Michael Douglas and his wife, Catherine Zeta-Jones, traveled to Jerusalem to celebrate their son Dylan's bar mitzvah, which must have been an extraordinary moment in his own transformation into a committed Jewish adult. Inspired by his own experience, Douglas has donated the Gift Award to promote programs on Jewish inclusion and diversity. Saul Friedlander was from an upper-middle-class family in Prague, yet totally assimilated and disconnected from Judaism. To evade the Nazis, Friedlander was sent to a Catholic school in France under the name Paul-Henri Ferland and raised as a Catholic. His parents fled to Switzerland, but the border guards turned them in to the Nazis. They were eventually killed at Auschwitz. 1 year after the end of the war, during an interview that preceded his planned entry into seminary and training for the priesthood, Friedlander learned of the death camps and of his parents' fate. He left that path, he reclaimed his Jewish heritage, and his support began for the establishment of the State of Israel. He became the Dean of Holocaust Historians and teaches at UCLA. Jorma Kaukonen was one of the founders of the Jefferson Airplane, whose very name brings many of us to the late 1960s. I know, you didn't think he was going to be ever mentioned in Kol Nidre, did you? Haight-Ashbury, the Fillmore, hippies, and amazing rock and roll. His extraordinary guitar fingering fueled White Rabbit and Someone to Love. His mother was Jewish. His father was from Finland. His Judaism was pretty dormant as he flitted between the Fur Peace Ranch and touring with Hot Tuna. But 10 years ago, after being married many years, his wife Vanessa decided she wanted to be Jewish. Vanessa felt that embracing Judaism was coming home. If she was going to choose Judaism, by golly, Jorma had to step it up. He recalled his great-grandparents, who were Russian Jewish farmers. He recalled receiving Israel bonds from his grandma Vera for his birthdays. And as part of their Jewish return, Jorma and Vanessa, when they adopted their daughter from China, they named her Israel, Izzy. And now they are integral parts of a Jewish community in Ohio. Michael Douglas, Saul Friedlander, Jorma Kaukonen, they are emblematic of what embracing Judaism might mean in this ever-changing world. Their models help us continue to keep our tent of welcome open wide so that all can enter, to discover and rediscover Jewish identity, to cultivate meaning in our Judaism, and to proudly carry forward our Jewish heritage. The question for each of them was, why be Jewish? What does it mean? Each had a chance to accept or reject our faith, and each conscientiously engaged with Judaism. The question tonight, friends, is, what will our choice be? How can we access this 5,000-year-old religious tradition and make it meaningful? What is our individual role in keeping the chain of tradition unbroken? Now, there are those who practice Judaism a la carte. They got a birthright trip here and a Seder there, a museum exhibit or a Jewish lecture or a film, and it's offered with a side order of Jock Peterson of the Dodgers or a Matisyahu concert. Moreover, in a Pandora and Spotify world where we can pick the songs we like and reject the ones we don't, some are feeling the same way with Judaism. I don't have to buy the whole package to pick and choose what I like. But what future is there for a playlist Judaism? Now, some suggest Jewish culture will be our mainstay, our strong connection. Deli food used to provide a special dimension to Judaism, but I don't think that's the case anymore, as bagels have turned mainstream with, pardon me, ham and pesto schmear. Once upon a time, we ate pastrami on rye with a side of kishke, or homemade fesanjan with gourmet sabzi. Now, all of us may be more likely to eat sushi, kombucha, or kale with a side order of quinoa. It's not the food that's going to keep us connected. Now, some say Judaism is a feeling in our hearts, a warm and fuzzy sensation. And I love that we can really touch and feel emotional about our heritage. But feelings don't always lead to action. And if we're merely responding to something, we can't be proactive and learn about the meaning of our tradition. Others used to fall back on a Judaism of ethnicity. But how does that secure the Jewish future in a world where Rachel Dolezal, born of white Christian evangelical parents, can proclaim her black identity and work for the NAACP, while a woman who grew up in Maryland's heavily Jewish Montgomery County, a Pakistani Muslim, Amna Faruqi, was elected the head of J Street U, heading the Jewish street for university students in North America. It used to be we kind of knew who we were. There were Orthodox and conservative and Reform Jews, Ashkenazic or Sephardic, a couple of atheists thrown in there, and the John Kerry, Madeleine Albright, George Allen variety, whose parents or grandparents hid their Jewishness. Now there are Jews of no religion, Jews by personal decision, partial Jews, and more. Some of these people may have a Madonna-like affection for Jewish mysticism. Some may have Jewish children because their spouse is Jewish, and some say they feel at home in the faith. Now, these Jews with melded or malleable or fluid identities might be called borderland Jews. They have identities on the edge. Some practice other faiths, some do not. These are people who are, for lack of a better word, Jews by affinity, proud, self-confident, not necessarily all of them Jewish by any halakhic Jewish legal definition, but certainly laying claim as stakeholders in our people's destiny. What is the nature of Jewish identity? I don't think this is a 21st century question. It's actually at the core of the Bible. You see, my friends, the Torah begins with Genesis, and that is a family saga. It's the grand sweep of the lifetime of Abraham and his descendants, the Abramsons, the Isaacsons, the Jacobsons, and the Josephsons. It's about our connection, our lineage, our sense of bonding one to another. It's not about performing rituals. It's about being a proud member of the tribe. It's about establishing who we are, telling the stories from one generation to another, and touching our memories. But the third book of the Torah, Leviticus, has very limited story elements, a huge amount of commandments. Mitzvah takes precedence. The very act of being Jewish is to perform the commandments. We're here to take our place, to do our job, and fulfill our religious destiny. We don't necessarily need to know why we're doing Jewish stuff, because our fathers and our mothers and their fathers and mothers acted Jewishly. Just do it. What we find here are two ways of thinking about who we are. Is Judaism a system of religious practice based on a covenant made with God? Or is the Torah the story of a people in which we take great pride? Are we a nation of priests and a holy people? Or is our identity purely tribal as descendants of Abraham, Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob, Rachel, and Leah? Now, in the book, The Jew Within, the scholars deeply connected to our religious identity thought that something was very personal. Worship, study, and justice were based on the ethical teachings of Judaism, but it became a faith of my personal meaning and identity. Others love a great sense of community, of finding a Hamish shul, a warm embrace of friends and family, of chavurah and hanging out with other Jews, of belonging. They feel the pulse of praying in a synagogue where memories flood our souls on these holy days, where our deceased family names light the hallway, the singular place where the past unites with the present as we create a glorious future for Judaism. But I don't think, friends, that it's either or. I think Judaism is both mitzvah and memory, behavior and bonding. It has a sense of history and belonging to a people, but it also has a spiritual practice and a sense of transcendence. What is the Judaism we need for the 21st century? That Judaism that we depend upon, the Judaism that needs every one of us sitting here. Our faith gave the world the notion that every human life has meaning, that all of us, short or tall, gay or straight, black or brown or white or yellow, thin or graciously endowed, we are all created in the image of God, B'Tselem Elohim. And because we believe in one divine parent for all humanity, it means we are all God's children, and our job is to take care of our family. Judaism is discontent for the status quo, for the way the world is. It's our hope to help shape the world that is into the world we want it to be. And we don't outsource this responsibility of Tikkun Olam. It's our lifetime quest. It means affirming life despite the profound moral choices that are placed before us, so that together we can work to bring a little closer the Jewish prophetic vision of a world at peace and in harmony. Judaism affirms the right of the minority to challenge the status quo and insist on the privilege to worship differently from the majority. This has become a hallmark of America, the bedrock principle of democratic society. We don't seek to make others worship as we do or celebrate as we do, but rather we sustain the faith of every person to his or her own spiritual vocabulary and ways of being. Judaism revels in human freedom, while at the same time it requires us to treat our neighbors as we wish to be treated, to welcome the stranger, the refugee, the migrant, the displaced, to care for the environment, and above all, to seek peace. Remember, it's almost dead center in the Torah where it says, "Proclaim liberty to all the inhabitants thereof." And those words, my friend, were carved on the Liberty Bell. To be a Jew means recognizing that we are the heirs and custodians of a priceless civilization which is ours to cherish and enhance. It means having a past to which we are inextricably linked by the generations that preceded us, those generations we remember on such days as Yom Kippur, which blessed their children at the Shabbat table, at B'nai Mitzvah, that sat at Passover yearning for next year in Jerusalem, that fasted on Yom Kippur and celebrated joyously at Purim, that passed the baton of the Jewish people from one generation to another. Being Jewish means recalling our history, the great and amazing moments of our people's journey, and the losses of the Shoah, of pogroms, of inquisitions and exiles. It means living in this moment filled with a splendid gratitude for the gift of life, the blessing of opportunity, and the sacred task set before us of igniting that holy spark within every one of us. Today, we can see the realization of the prayers of millions of Jews over many centuries, the unbelievable return of the Jewish people to the cradle of our existence, and the rebirth of the sovereign state of Israel. As Winston Churchill, a lifelong Zionist, said in 1947, the coming into being of a Jewish state is an event in world history to be viewed not in the perspective of a generation or a century, but in the perspective of 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 years. How right he was, and how we need to continually forge the link between Israel and the Jewish people. You see, my friends, as Elie Wiesel once said, it is not seeking to make the world more Jewish. Our task is to make the world more human. That's the goal that animates our people through good times and bad from the very beginning. My friends, being Jewish is all of the above, being part of our evolving religious civilization, and anywhere along the way is the place to step in and make your mark, and any time is the right time to do so. It's not just something we can desist from and say, someone else will do it for us. You and I together are the only ones who can enjoy the Jewish future and ensure it by building our Jewish present. Chief Rabbi of South Africa once capsulized how Judaism will thrive in 3 simple words from the Haggadah. Ani velo hashaliach. Say those words with me. Ani velo hashaliach. I and not a messenger, says God. I'm the one who redeemed you from Egypt. I sent you Moses. I brought the plagues. I hardened Pharaoh's heart. I took you out with a strong hand, and I did all this. I did not send a messenger. I did it myself, said God, because when something is really important to us, we don't leave it to anybody else. We don't do it through a messenger. Ani velo hashaliach. I am the one, no messenger. And that's why, friends, there's no place for a vicarious Judaism. We can't pass along to others the actual conduct of our religious and communal life. No religious life can flourish by default in the hands of a messenger. We've always learned in everything we did since we were little kids that we get out of something what we put into it. Same thing applies to Judaism. The real rebirth of our spiritual power and glory will come when we've all returned on a large scale to a simple principle: personal participation in the synagogue and in the community and all it stands for. Think of all the times this synagogue has been there for you or for someone you know. This synagogue is like a giant power grid energizing Jewish life and nurturing Jewish souls. But in the end, the success of the synagogue depends on every one of us here. That power is self-generated. The synagogue, like the power grid, has no power of its own. It's only the power generated by those connected to it. We have to generate that power together. Let me conclude with a story of a very wealthy merchant who lived in a mountain village in Europe. He was concerned about the legacy he would leave to the people of his town. The man spent a great deal of time contemplating his dilemma, and finally, he decided to build a synagogue. In the course of his planning, he decided, unlike modern synagogues, that no one would see the plans for the building until it was finished. The construction took a long time, much longer than he had anticipated. But finally, the project was completed. The townspeople were excited and curious what they would finally find upon entering their new synagogue. When the people came for the first time, they marveled at the synagogue's magnificence. No one could ever see in their memories such a beautiful synagogue anywhere in the world. Then, all of a sudden, someone noticed a seemingly obvious flaw in the design. One of the townspeople asked, "But where are the lamps? Who will provide the lighting?" The merchant pointed to brackets that were placed all around the synagogues, strategically placed along the walls. He then gave each family a lamp, as he explained. "Whenever you come to the synagogue, I want you to bring the lamp, and I want you to light it. But each time you are not here," he said, "that portion of the synagogue will remain dark. The lamp will remind you that whenever you're absent, some of the community's house will also be dark. Your community is relying on you for the light." And that, my friends, is the nature of our community and our synagogue as well. We rely upon you for light, the light of Torah, the light of God's presence, the light of welcome, the light of comfort and strength, the light of guidance in time of need, the light of Jewish renewal that serves as a beacon guiding us to our glorious Jewish future. And so, friends, as we begin the new year, I ask you to join me. Do your part in keeping our Jewish light burning bright.